today we're continuing to answer the question of how we know with no reasonable doubt that exposure of susceptible babies and children to acetaminophen is causing many, if not most, cases of autism. So this is part number 10 in our video series on YouTube and Instagram, and the line of evidence number 18 out of 20 total. It's all about the observations of parents. So the observations of parents historically have been very, very important in our understanding of autism. And it goes back to the 1940s when autism was discovered both here and in Germany, here in the United States and in Germany. So the initial thoughts behind autism from the medical establishment were actually tragic. They were extremely sad. It's something called the refrigerator mother hypothesis. Now, I've got a long lecture style video that's posted on YouTube. It's called Autism and Acetaminophen, Paracetamol, a Summary of Evidence. Now, this video goes into great detail on what I'm just going to talk about briefly today. But the bottom line is that when autism was first discovered, it was literally the medical establishment blamed autism on bad parenting. It was called the refrigerator mother hypothesis. You had mothers who were aloof and fathers who were aloof and just did not connect with their child. So a really tragic model. And from the 1940s when autism was discovered until 1965, this model prevailed. And parents were saying, look, we're good parents, we're normal parents, we have other children. We didn't do this, but nobody was listening to them. They just were ignored, tragically. So about 1965, that idea got overturned, and then a new idea took over in the mainstream, which was that autism it's called innate, which means you're just born with it. There was something in the wiring of the brain that went wrong early on. It was just there from the get-go, which means that nobody really believed, nobody in the mainstream medical scientific establishment believed that you could regress into, that you could be developing normally and then regress into autism. And again, people just were not listening to the parents, and I cannot imagine the amount of frustration on the parts of the parents that was caused by this. So my kid was developing normally, and then this event happened, and then he just, typically a male, then regressed or lost those developmental milestones and was diagnosed with autism. So this held sway all the way up until 2005. So from the 1940s until 2005, people didn't believe you could regress into autism. So, and again, finally listening to the observations of parents, scientists looked at regression, they analyzed videos of children growing up and said, yep, sure enough, you can regress into autism. The parents' observations were correct. Now, this line of evidence, our line of evidence number 18, is about another observation of parents. Medical doctors have repeatedly seen that parents who have a child with autism, many of those parents, 30 to 50%, think that a vaccine was involved in the development of that child's autism. So what we know now is that, well, acetaminophen is a very, very potent trigger that induces damage, which we know is autism. So it was discovered around 1998 that there's some kind of connection there. There was just a case series reported, and then you start talking to the parents, and yep, this is what I saw. So we again just dismiss those observations. Now, a decade later, a guy named Stephen Schultz, and we've talked about his work on a couple of lines of evidence, he figured out, hey, it's not the vaccine, it's actually the acetaminophen. And now, my group has done a lot of work, and other groups have put together all these different lines of evidence saying, yep, it's the acetaminophen. It is not the vaccine. But the bottom line is, if we listen to those parents, right, and really tried to sort out what's going on there when they got the vaccination, we would have seen that, oh, it's the acetaminophen that's given with the vaccination. And it took about a decade, and again, it was Stephen Schultz that first figured that out. And that is our line of evidence number 18. We should listen to the parents' observations, study those observations, and really figure out what's going on there. And that's what Stephen Schultz did.